everybody, it's me, not the Lorax. Hi, we're reading a book, and I am definitely not on TikTok and watching Lorax videos. Noivus. I have so many new vocal stems. It's great. So, what's happening today? I'm a little bit silly, alright? I went out today just to go inside and whatever. Oh, where am I? Hi, hi. We're reading a book. We're reading Scum Villain. We're reading Scum Villain Self-Saving System because we love it. We all love it, and we all love it. Noivus. Anyway. I have an issue. I have issues. Book. Look, it's a book. Jingle, jingle, jingle. We're reading the infamous Coffin scene. Well, we're gonna get to it in this stream. Yeah, we're gonna get to it in this stream. Yeah. Ooh, wow. Oh, wow, the next chapter is like really, really long. So we're definitely gonna have to break that into two. Guys, I need to tell you something. My armpit hurts so much. Like, I pulled a muscle in my armpit somehow. And it really hurts, and now it's going down to my elbow? How does that happen? What does that... How does that work? Ow. But yeah, if I'm a bit weird today, and if I say ow every now and then, that's why. That's why. So yeah. Now I shall check my tea to see if it has cooled down enough for me to drink. No, it is not. That's fine. How are you doing today? How are you doing? My Discord is not working. Anyway, how are you doing today? I hope you're having a good day. I'm having a good day, all apart from the armpit hurting. Hey, my Twitch is actually doing okay now. What? Finally. Ladies, take your tops off. No. Why do I have like 5 Discords open on my task manager? What the fuck is up with that? Huh? What? Bro, what the fuck? Sorry, I'm just trying to fix things on my computer. I should have done this earlier, but it was just bothering me now, so I needed to do that. Anyway, my arm hurts. Am I even gonna be able to do anything today? No. We can read. We can read. Read this beautiful book, Scum Villain Self-Saving System, Volume 3. Volume 3. It's a good one. It's a good one, I promise. Alright. We're on... Where do we leave off? Hang on. I wrote it down. We're in, like, the middle of chapter 15. So, yes. Let me find where I wrote it down. Yes. Ended at full of murderous intent. Now, where is that on this page? Do I have reverb on? No, I don't. Good, just checking. Full of murderous intent, yes. Let's just reread that paragraph, maybe. Maybe not. Let's just continue. Molbinka's here. He's here to save the day. Well, kind of. Anyway. Kind of. Okay, but yes, we're about in kind of towards the top of page 47, chapter 15, Holy Mausoleum. Let's go. At first glance, that great beast appeared to be some sort of rhinoceros with a single horn arcing from its forehead, curved like the crescent moon. But when it opened its mouth and let out a cry, a giant scarlet python uncurled from its blood-red maw. The rhinoceros's bellow mixed with the python's hissing shriek and made for a particularly stunning impression. In the flesh, a black moon, rhinoceros, python. Black plus moon plus rhinoceros plus python. So the black moon, rhinoceros, python really was just a simple combination of these four elements. Great Master Airplane Shooting Towards the Sky's naming sense was as dependable as always. Judy Lang dutifully moved to stand in front of Tianlang Jun, in the process also getting in front of Shen Qingqiu. Furthermore, as soon as Shen Qingqiu saw Luo Bingke, he subconsciously scooted closer to Judy Lang's back. It wasn't like he was desperate to avoid Luo Bingke, but he had a guilty conscience and didn't have the face to look at him. He dared even less to consider what Luo Bingke might be feeling, having seen Shen Qingqiu breathe his last breath before his eyes a second time. He could only unconsciously avoid the issue by not allowing himself to look, pretending that if he can't see, he wouldn't be bothered. Tianlang Jun raised an eyebrow. This expression, too, bore a remarkable resemblance to something Luo Bingke might wear. So he didn't hesitate to capture 200 Black Moon rhinoceros pythons to break the barrier around the Holy Mausoleum. Peak Lord Shen, this son of mine truly goes to extraordinary lengths for you. Shen Qingqiu had no retort. This was the rare demonic beast that, in the original work, summoned even the endless abyss with its call. Luo Bingke had gone as far as to capture 200 at once in order to break into the Holy Mausoleum. Only after the dust settled could Shen Qingqiu clearly see that Luo Bingke had indeed broken into the Holy Mausoleum all by himself. To the demon race, the Holy Mausoleum was both sacred ground and a restricted area. Either one merited reverence from the local demons, so they wouldn't dare commit any violations. This was a question of faith, so no one had dared to come with Luo Bingke. Of course, he could only do it alone. Your courage is commendable, said Tianlang Jun. However, while your coming here is of no great consequence, you shouldn't have brought those two strays. Luo Bingke leapt down from the rhinoceros python's head, and a dark expression on his face, as if that great beast had exhausted the last of its energy and could continue no longer. It collapsed to the ground with a crash. Luo Bingke fixed an unwavering glare on Shen Qingqiu, sparks flying from his eyes. He looked furious, yet also as if he was about to cry. Shen Qingqiu suddenly realized that when he ducked behind Juji Lang a moment ago, it had looked too much like he was avoiding Luo Bingke again. Shen Qingqiu, when are you gonna learn? This guy is sensitive. But he didn't have the time to explain right now. The person standing beside him was the male lead's dad, the one who even the author had confirmed had a crushing power advantage over the protagonist in all respects. Shen Qingqiu finally got a sound out of his throat. Go back. Luo Bingke didn't respond. With a flick of his hand, he tossed Xu Ya over, and only after seeing Shen Qingqiu catch the sword did he turn to face the other two people in the mausoleum hall. After gathering two fiercely roiling masses of demonic energy into his palms, Luo Bingke's figure flickered and he flung them straight forward. Oh, no, we're gone on Twitch. Oh well. Oh well. Fighting already? Luo Bingke's left hand smashed into Judy Lang's abdomen, sending him flying without a moment of suspense. His right hand bore down on Tianlang Jun. Shen Qingqiu went tense, focusing his full attention on the scene. Yet Tianlang Jun caught the blow, without retreating even a single step. He flipped his hand and lightly swept it downward, palm brushing over Luo Bingke's shoulder. Shen Qingqiu swore he could hear the bones breaking within Luo Bingke's body. As if in confirmation, Luo Bingke blinked, then without warning, coughed up a mouthful of blood. The entirety of his chin, neck, and chest were stained red, and the blood continued to drip down to the ground. Luo Bingke wiped the corner of his mouth, looking a bit confused. To tell the truth, it had been a long time since he had been injured to the point of spitting blood. Wasn't it laid down in law that the protagonist had OP plot armor? Have we switched to screwing over the protagonist now that we're done screwing with the reader? Tianlang Jun had given Luo Bingke only a light tap on the shoulder, but that arm of his came off again. Tianlangjun furrowed his brow, and Judy Long immediately scooped up the arm and presented it with both hands. I'll cough and see you when I get you. Oh no! Oh no! Don't do that. Luo Binghe stopped wiping at his blood and reached behind him to grab Shin Mo from its place on his back, a dangerous glint flashing through his eyes. That sword is a good blade, remarked Tianlangjun. It's just a pity that your technique is a hideous mess. Come with me, Luo Binghe called to Shen Qingqiu. It's too late, said Judy Lang. 200 rhinoceros pythons were sufficient to open the Holy Mausoleum's barrier for only an instant, just enough to let you in. Then I'll use the two of you as blood sacrifices to open it again. But who could have expected that before Jinmo could fully left its sheath, its sheath, it would be thrust back inside. At some point, Tianlangjun had moved to stand behind Luo Binghe, and he pressed the sword back into its sheath with a single finger, completely preventing Luo Binghe from drawing it. Luo Binghe's reaction was also extraordinarily swift. He turned to respond, but no matter how fast he moved, he only ever managed to draw Shinmo 3 inches at most before it was shoved back in. After a few of these exchanges, Tianlangjun seemed to lose interest in teasing Luo Binghe, and with a flick of his wrist, he ignored Shinmo and directly pressed down on Luo Binghe's skull instead. Luo Binghe's eyes snapped open. A dense cloud of purple-black chi roiled atop his head. Tianlangjun lifted his hand, took a look at Luo Binghe's snow-pale face, and commented indifferently. He looks like his mother. Haha. His eyes look like yours, came a chill voice from the side. Tianlangjun slowly turned his head. Cold light glimmered off Shuya's blade as it pressed against Jujilang's neck. It would be a bad deal for you to lose such a good subordinate and darling nephew, Shen Qingqiu said with a faint smile. Shouldn't Tianlangjun take the time to consider that? He's so sexy. He's so sexy. My lord, this subordinate was incautious, Jujilang said quietly. Even when he was being incautious, Jujilang had been rather difficult to get a hold of. It had taken a great deal of effort for Shen Qingqiu's part to restrain him. Even when he wasn't in snake form, this fellow was just as slippery. Oh my god. Jujilang is a bit foolish. He's quite emotionally fragile, Tianlangjun said lightly. If you treat him like this, you'll break his heart. My lord, I'm not foolish, Jujilang weakly protested. Meanwhile, I'm not emotionally fragile at all, but I am heartbroken that you're treating my disciple like this, Shen Qingqiu said, half serious. Release my disciple and I'll release your nephew, all right? Tianlangjun spread his hands. I'm just afraid I won't have the chance. In truth, Shen Qingqiu's palms were clammy with cold sweat. His voice was the only thing calm and collected about him. I'm giving you the chance right now. I meant, Tianlangjun said, that I'm afraid Jujilang won't give me the chance. Tianlangjun had barely finished speaking when Jujilang suddenly threw himself at Shen Qingqiu's sword point. The force he used was extraordinary, like it really was a matter of life and death, and Shen Qingqiu didn't for a moment suspect he was fainting. He startled and subconsciously withdrew his blade. As soon as he did, Jujilang seized the opportunity to escape and dashed back to Tianlangjun's side. Tianlangjun made a "see" sort of expression and chuckled. I told you, Jujilang is a bit foolish. If someone tried to hold him hostage against me, he would seek death himself. Peak Lord Shen must not underestimate him. Shen Qingqiu almost coughed up blood. Jujilang really had no value to speak of as a hostage. Not only was he hard to catch, even after you finally got a hold of him, it didn't feel like a worthwhile venture at all. But since my nephew had to suffer this little grievance, Tianlangjun said. It's only reasonable to recoup the loss on Peak Lord Shen's disciple. As he spoke, his fingers slightly curled. Lo Binghe let out a stifled groan and blood flowed from the corners of his eyes, but those eyes still turned toward Shen Qingzhou with great difficulty, and he ground out through the blood foaming at his mouth. Go, anywhere you want. Just don't stay here. Shen Qingzhou snapped his head up and threw Xu Ya forward. It streaked toward Tianlangjun in an arc of white lightning, but Tianlangjun only barely tilted his head, and the blade brushed by his cheek before nailing into the mural far behind him with a clang. Your aim isn't very good, said Tianlangjun. It is very good. Shen Qingzhou slowly pulled his arm back, and a faint smile curved the corner of his mouth. I hit bullseye. Tianlangjun paused, then immediately turned around only to see that Xu Ya was stabbed into the mural, right inside the smiling woman's eye. The jewel that had been inlaid in her... The jewel that had been inlaid in her pupil shattered into pieces, which fell from the stone wall in a twinkling shower. That woman was undoubtedly, that's how it's pronounced, just a face painted on the wall, but the corners of her smiling mouth curved higher and higher, like she herself was growing happier and happier. The change continued until the split of her mouth reached her ears, like she was grinning with the slit-mouthed woman's bloody maw. Suddenly, a burst of piercing laughter erupted in the mausoleum hall, and this sound came from the mural woman's mouth. The Hall of Delight had anti-thief measures. The mural was inlaid all over with precious stones, but if you pried out even a single one, you could only sit and wait to be laughed to death by the Hall of Delight's demoness with her sound wave attack. Sound wave attack. Bam! The effect of this laughter was especially evident on demons. After all, the primary intruders the defenses were designed to target were revolving demonic tomb raiders. Scant few humans were bored or gusty enough to go tomb raiding in the demon realm. Upon hearing this laughter, your heart and brain would pound without end. There'd be a wave of acute pain, and the world around you would spin about as your vision blurred. Zhujilang couldn't help but cover his ears, and Tianlangjun also spared a hand to press against his temple. Shen Qingzhou had long been prepared for this turn of events, and using this split second of opportunity, he swept across the hall. With a wave of his left hand, Xu Ya flew back into its sheath, and with his right hand he grabbed Lo Binghe and ran. As soon as he changed into the next mausoleum hall, the first thing Shen Qingzhou did was drop the gates and drop them tight. The enormous, heavy slab of stone thundered to the ground, stirring up a cloud of dust. He could only find the mechanism to close the door, but not the one to open it, although it would be ideal if this door didn't open at all. As soon as he had thought this... As soon as he had this thought and was finally able to relax, he turned his head. When he saw... I fucking forgot about this! Oh my god! What he saw made him collapse to his knees on the spot. Zhujilang blinked at Shen Qingzhou, one arm held tightly in his grasp. He'd really done it this time. He'd actually managed to leave the father-son duo, currently engaged in one-sided demonic violence, within the Hall of Delight. This was too severe of an offense. A criminal case was about to happen in there. Shen Qingzhou whipped his arm away, turned, and went to strike at the stone door, but Zhujilang stopped him. Immortal Master Shen, don't go back. He has no chance against my lord. Shen Qingzhou was on the verge of collapse. How could he have grabbed the wrong person from such a close distance? The Hall of Delight mural woman's laughing attack must have been too strong, the light from those green candles too dim, and on top of that, all three of the other men were wearing black robes that looked about the same at first glance. Was it because they were relatives? that their tastes in color and style were basically identical? Immortal Master Shen didn't grab the wrong person, said Jujilong. I swapped out the arm you grabbed. This was the last straw for Shen Qingzhou, and he slammed a fist to the stone door. I was trying to take Lo Binghe! Immortal Master Shen, didn't he already take you long ago? Jujilong paused and asked in confusion. Shen Qingzhou was speechless. There really was no way to talk to these people. He raised a hand, gesturing for Jujilong to shut up. Then he turned and walked a few steps, but suddenly realized that the floor beneath his feet wasn't entirely smooth. When Jujilong tried to follow him, he hurriedly held out an arm to stop him. Don't move! An enormous woman's face was painted across the entire floor of this grand hall. They were currently standing on her ear. Unlike the woman in the Hall of Delight, this face had none of that flirtatious beauty. Instead, it was fierce and fiendish, its narrow eyes bulging in rage above a wide nose. The effect was unsurpassably hideous, looking just like a female yaksha. Footnote: a type of nature spirit in Buddhism, Hindu, Jain, and other mythologies. They may be benevolent or capricious, and the dark kind are said to devour humans. Oh. Don't step on the face, Shen Qingzhou said with caution. Jujilong was silent. The whole floor was a face. Where would you step if not on the face? The three halls of delight, fury, and sorrow came one after the other. After the first, the hall of delight, the hall of fury immediately followed. When the original Lo Binghe had looted the holy mausoleum, he had cleared this level by using a special sequence of steps to cross it. Unfortunately, Shen Qingzhou didn't clearly remember where exactly he had stepped. If a single one was wrong, the anti-theft measures in the Hall of Fury activated. You couldn't even fly over the face with your sword, because as long as you passed directly above any spot on the floor, it counted as a step. That said, of course you'd get angry if someone stepped on your face. No wonder this was the Hall of Fury. Shen Qingzhou had the gall to rush in here because he thought he'd grabbed Lo Binghe, who definitely knew the step sequence. But he never could have expected that this snake would be slippery enough to swap himself in within a split second. That was a lot of sibilance. The ground grew hotter and hotter. The woman's face on the ground had originally been a scarlet hue, but it darkened to crimson as the heat surged. Shen Qingzhou crouched down to test the temperature, but he had to pull his hand back as soon as it touched the ground. It was as hot as if a fire blazed beneath the floor, and even standing on it would roast you like meat on a hot plate. They must have knowingly stepped on the face a few times already. Shen Qingzhou retreated a few steps, getting as close to the edge of the room as possible. Suddenly, a red liquid burst out from the ground in the fountain, blazing with a searing, bright golden glow. Jujilong immediately shifted into his original form, a yellow-eyed green snake coiled on the ground, scales aglow. He reared his upper body and let out a hissing cry, reaching the height of 4 men, then wrapped Shen Qingzhou in a mass of coils, enveloping him securely within a layer of scaly armor. In this position, Jujilong's gleaming fangs were right next to Shen Qingzhou's head, and those giant golden eyes were even more unsettling from up close. Qianlongjun was right. Jujilong really was a bit foolish. Had he forgotten that time he had been drenched in realgar fumes to the point of tears? Had he forgotten how Shen Qingzhou pointed a sword at him just minutes ago? With how hard Jujilong was working to protect him even now, Shen Qingzhou was practically too embarrassed to take advantage of him now. Suddenly, with an enormous crash, an entire wall of the Hall of Fury collapsed. Qianlongjun rotated his wrist as he made his way down the pile of rubble, through the floating dust, and stepped into the hall. Am I mistaken, or does Peak Lord Shen seem more familiar with this holy mausoleum than even me? Long transformed back into human form. "My lord, don't come in," he cried. Before a questioning expression could appear on Jun's face, he had already taken 6 or 7 steps across the woman's face on the floor. Shen Jingzhou was speechless. Long was speechless too. A pillar of magma, thick enough for 4 men to encircle with their arms outstretched, exploded upward. Tianlongjun was instantly engulfed in the raging blaze. Ha 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 ha. Shen Jingzhou internally howled with laughter. "See what happens when you don't let others finish talking? See what happens when you beat up your darling son? You can act as hard as you can, but pride goes before the fall." However, very soon, he was unable to laugh any further. Luo Binghe staggered as he followed close behind Tianlongjun and almost charged in. One of his arms hung slack at his side like it had been completely broken. Blood poured from his head, and one of his eyes couldn't even open anymore. How wretched. Luo Binghe was in an even worse state than when Shen Jingzhou first laid eyes on him upon his arrival in this world, when the original flavor had beaten him. What was up with Luo Binghe's constitution? Why did his elders all like to teach him lessons with violence? This isn't Baijian Peak! Long anxiously circled that pillar of fire, too preoccupied for anything else. Luo Binghe scanned the scene within the hall, then looked down. He jumped from the pile of rubble and took a few rapid steps before arriving at Shen Jingzhou's side. In a flash, because he's just better that way, I guess. This was just unscientific. How come a single glance was all he needed to know where to step so as not to trigger the mechanism? As if Luo Binghe knew what he was thinking, he concisely explained himself. "Step on the acupoints." As he spoke, he and Shen Jingzhou had already crossed the Hall of Fury and entered the next room. While the stone gate lowered, Shen Jingzhou couldn't help but take a few more glances at Luo Binghe, confirming that this time he didn't have the wrong person. Shen Jingzhou hesitated at the periphery of the mausoleum hall, afraid to make a hasty move. The demons of the Hall of Sorrow was perched. The demoness of the Hall of Sorrow was perched on the zenith of the hall. When he looked up, as expected, the woman's face was drawn there with her brows tightly knit in an expression of graceful woe. Sensing the intruders, the face's eyes opened, and its features twisted into an even more miserable expression. A few drops of water seeped. Sorry, that's my dryer. A few drops of water seeped from its eyes, and before long a dense rain drizzled down from the entire ceiling. Shen Jingzhou was just about to speak up and warn Luo Binghe that this was corpse rain, that they ought not to let it touch their bodies, when Luo Binghe raised one of his arms to cover Shen Jingzhou and ran straight across. Just like that, Shen Jingzhou was dragged through the level at top speed. The original Luo Binghe had favored exacting technique. What was up with him now? This method was far too simple and crude. The 3 halls of delight, fury, and sorrow were a subplot that had stretched on for 200,000 words. If one converted the events that had just transpired, it wouldn't amount to a single chapter. The Hall of Sorrow should have dragged on for at least 10 before it concluded, but now, was that even enough for 3 lines? The system chirped out a notification. Cut down filler plot, refine the storyline, B points plus 100. This was too much cutting. After they exited the 3 holy halls, they found themselves in a dark and silent corridor. As soon as they entered it, green flames lit up dimly, row after row, stretching endlessly into the distance. The anti-theft measures of the Holy Mausoleum were practically dense enough to ward off a fly, and to an insane degree. Last breath candle arrays were piled everywhere like they didn't cost a cent, and the blind corpses that had been wandering aimlessly in the earlier corridors now approached, saliva dripping from their mouths. Luo Binghe raised his hand, a cold and impatient look on his face. The corpses let out a series of low, lamenting hisses, panting breaths rumbling in their throats, before retreating into the shadows with lowered heads. Without sparing Shen Qingqiu a glance, Lo Binghe put his hand down and said, "Let's go." Shen Qingqiu noticed that Lo Binghe's face was incredibly red. Under the dim green candlelight, the color was exceedingly obvious, but it absolutely didn't seem like a blush of embarrassment. Every time Lo Binghe caught Shen Qingqiu before, he had stared at him, like he was trying to stare through him. But this time, he didn't so much as look. Upon realizing that Shen Qingqiu was looking at him, Lo Binghe even avoided his gaze, subconsciously using his unbroken left hand to wipe away the blood stains by his eyes. Shen Qingqiu wondered if Lo Binghe had been poisoned, or if maybe he had suffered a cerebral hemorrhage during the fight. But Lo Binghe's gait was still steady, so it didn't seem like that was the issue. He was just about to ask when Lo Binghe spoke first. Are the meridians of that body working well?" Shen Qingqiu had never expected this to be Lo Binghe's first question. He paused, then replied, "They're working normally." It seemed that every time they fell into a silence, Lo Binghe was the first to break it. Though, when he thought about it, Lo Binghe had spent 5 years fixing every one of his body's meridians, bit by bit. Lo Binghe nodded. "That's good. I preserved the other body for a few days, but it's still withered in the end. That doesn't bode well if anything goes wrong with this one." Once the soul left the body created by the dew mushroom, it instantly died, then went on to wither and dissolve. For Lo Binghe to have actually sustained it for several days, who knew how much spiritual energy he had wasted on that endeavor? And he still dared to storm into the holy mausoleum by himself right afterward. Shen Qingqiu felt a tightness in his chest, and his thoughts were a scattered and uneasy mess as he tried to find some random topic of conversation. Tianlangjun had mentioned that Lo Binghe brought 2 strays with him, so Shen Qingqiu asked, "Who else did you bring?" Lo Binghe finally gave him a glance. "I came alone," he said. Then, "Those 2 aren't good companions," he continued only after a pause. "Even if Shizun doesn't want to stay with me, I hope he wouldn't associate with them." It sounded like this wasn't Lo Binghe's first rendezvous with Tianlangjun and Zhu Jilang. "You've met them before?" Shen Qingqiu asked. I engaged that snake on the southern border," Lo Binghe said mildly. "We fought a few times, and he nearly got the better of me. I've never seen the other one before, but I couldn't defeat him." He doesn't know. He doesn't know. He just doesn't know. Oh my boy. Zhu Jilang was from the southern border, so he'd naturally be at his best in that environment. Tianlangjun had said that the Jinlan city plague was originally wrought to resolve a food shortage in that territory. It was to be expected that Lo Binghe might have fought Zhu Jilang there. I need to adjust myself because my hips hurt. Whoa! Okay. Oh, no, I'm too close. Okay. But it seemed that Zhu Jilang had never explained his identity to Lo Binghe, nor had he treated him like the young master of the family. Tianlangjun didn't seem inclined to do so either, so it looked like neither the father nor the cousin had any intention of acknowledging Lo Binghe. Though Lo Binghe's stride was steady, he walked with a faint limp, but he kept his back straight, and he didn't use the wall to support himself. Shen Qingqiu felt mixed emotions at the sight of this. After awkwardly hesitating for a moment, he steeled his resolve and stepped forward to support Lo Binghe. Just then the candles suddenly flickered, the tomb corridor dimmed, and Lo Binghe loomed over him. However, this time, Lo Binghe didn't pull him into a forceful embrace, nor did he get handsy. He just completely collapsed into Shen Qingqiu, and then he didn't move a mote. "No, Binghe, no, Binghe. No, Lo Binghe, get up!" Oh my god. After so long running every which way, Shen Qingqiu was also utterly exhausted. Unable to support the weight of 2 people, he slammed into the stone wall with a thud. Lo Binghe fell sideways. into him, all limp, and his head cracked against the wall, letting out a loud thunk. Shen Jingzhou's heart clenched along with the noise, his gums aching in sympathy. He rapidly got to his feet and put his arms around Luo Bingke, patting around until his hand reached Luo Bingke's back. The clothes across that back were ragged, corroded through by the corpse rain in the Hall of Sorrow. When Shen Jingzhou reached further, he found that the texture of the skin underneath that clothing was all wrong, as if rotting. It was already beginning to smell. After all, there was nothing good about corpse rain. When no one else was around, Shen Jingzhou's preferred method of waking up other men was to give them 2 light slaps on the face. But before he'd even extended his hand, he figured he couldn't bear to do it. So instead, he lightly patted Luo Bingke's cheek, subconsciously also lowering his voice. Luo Bingke, Luo Bingke. But Luo Bingke's eyelids were so heavy that his lashes didn't so much as tremble. In addition, his face was still flushed and abnormal red. When Shen Jingzhou reached up to touch it, both his forehead and cheeks were scalding hot, as if he had a fever. However, Luo Bingke's body shouldn't even have known this concept of fever, even if he occasionally ended up in dire straits. It never lasted long, nor would it get so bad as he lost consciousness. When Shen Jingzhou reached down to touch Luo Bingke's hands, they were ice cold. It was like his head was in a furnace while the rest of his body was in a freezer, I bet. Shen Jingzhou put one hand on the back of Luo Bingke's head, rubbing the place where it had crashed into the wall. Bingke, can you hear me? No response. Shen Jingzhou counted up the causes. In order to protect Shen Jingzhou's body and prevent it from withering, Luo Bingke had exhausted several days' worth of spiritual energy, but in the end, he'd still failed. Then he'd gone around catching all those Black Moon rhinoceros pythons. After that, he'd come to the Holy Mausoleum. Tianlangjun had beaten him up, and he'd been assaulted by the sound attack in the Hall of Delight. Then Tianlangjun had continued beating him up, and finally, he'd been soaked in corpse rain. No matter how you looked at it, this was much more serious than a fever. And that's the end of the chapter. And that's the end of the chapter. The next chapter, chapter 16, is called Melting Ice. Melting ice. Ugh. Sorry, I'm getting situated again. I'm getting situated, and I'm trying not to... Ow, 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 ow. I'm trying to not to stretch my arm very much, or use it. But it's very difficult. It really hurts. I'm really hoping it's just muscle pain and not something else. Sorry, I'm a little warm and now I'm fanning myself with a book. Alright. Alright, chapter 16, Melting Ice. I'm fine. On page 65. Oh boy. Oh boy. We're probably gonna pause in the middle. Oh yeah, there's a nice scene break over here. Okay. Okay, let's get to it. After Luo Bingke passed out, his presence lost its suppressive effect, and the blind corpses that had retreated into the shadows began to stir again, coming to surround them as hissing groans escaped their throats. Shen Jingzhou held Luo Bingke's limp body with one hand and Shu Ya with the other. With a whip of his arm, the sword flew from its sheath like an arrow and stabbed through a dozen corpses on its first sweep. However, the snow-bright blade caught light very well, and when the green glow of the last breath candles reflected off the sword, its glint grew even more piercing. Between the blind corpses' hypersensitivity to light and their quick dodges, this trick wouldn't work a second time. Right after Shen Jingzhou returned the sword to the sheath at his waist, several withered hands reached for him, and one even went for Luo Bingke's eyes. Shen Jingzhou swept out with a spiritual blast, bursting that unruly blind corpse's hand into confetti. But though spiritual blasts were an effective maneuver, one couldn't rely on them exclusively. They expended too much spiritual energy, and before long your stones would run dry. Your stores would run dry. In addition, Shenjingzhou had returned to his original state, where he had 2 bars of battery. He couldn't be as unrestrained as he was with his dew mushroom form. After releasing 20 or so attacks, he felt himself waning. He felt himself waning slightly. Oh, I'm so sleepy. Okay. I'm okay. The blind corpses jostled back and forth in the corridor, and he could only kick them away one by one. Though these monsters were low level, they never stopped coming, and he was holding a woozy Lo Binka. As he was sent staggering, his grip slipped for a moment, and Lo Binka's head crashed into the stone wall again. That thunk sounded especially painful. Shen Qingzhou guiltily cradled the back of Lo Binka's head in his hand, touching it again and again. He kept feeling like a giant lump had begun to swell them. Oh my god, had begun to swell there. First a fever and now a bump? Let's not give this child brain damage, okay? Still calls him a child. Oh, I love him. Guys, I think I need glasses. I'm not gonna lie, I'm having trouble focusing on the words. I think maybe I need glasses. Like, if I just relax my eyes... Hang on. If I just relax my eyes, then it's very blurry. Not very blurry, but it's a bit blurry. I think I need glasses. Anyway. Weak mobs were still troublesome, and staying in this tomb corridor full of last breath candles would only attract endless waves of blind corpses. Shenjingzhou changed positions and hauled an arm of Lo Binka's over his shoulder, then bolted away, dragging him along like a comet trailing its tail. He left the blind corpses several meters behind, but his harried breaths made the last breath candles light up one after another, cloaking them in an inescapable glow. Though the blind corpses couldn't catch up, he couldn't lose them either, and they were dodged in their pursuit, until Shen Jingzhou passed a small chamber as he turned a corner. This might have been a preparation chamber. Coffins were scattered throughout the room in disarray, and the lids of some had even been overturned onto the floor. The resulting atmosphere was neither serious nor solemn. Shen Jingzhou quickly dragged Lo Binka inside, checking the coffins one by one. Some contained withered corpses lying in strange positions, but some were empty. The hissing outside the chamber grew closer and closer, and long wavering shadows weaved wildly on the floor. Oh, I see you, alliteration. As the situation was getting dangerous, Shen Jingzhou leapt into a stone coffin. He had wanted to stuff Lo Binka into another one, but there was no time. They tumbled into the same casket, entangled together. Even though a layer of soft material padded the bottom, when Shen Jingzhou slammed down inside, stars filled his vision. Lo Binka was on top, and Shen Jingzhou was on the bottom, so he was smushed under a considerable weight and almost unable to draw another breath. What had this child been eating? He looked quite slim, so how was he this heavy? Furthermore, the lid on the coffin was only halfway shut. Shen Jingzhou was about to reach out to close it when the green light outside flickered, and several stooped black shadows appeared on the ceiling. The blind corpses had come inside. They shuffled into the preparation chamber, making the occasional quiet tap against the furnishings, as well as rasping their sharp fingernails on the stone coffins. The result was blood-curdlingly eerie. If there was any place that was difficult... Nope, guys, my brain... I can read, I promise. I can read, I promise. Bleh, noises. I'm bashful. Are we good? Are we... Okay. Bleh, noises. Where was I? Where was I? If there was any place... Where was I? 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 Where was I I think I was here. If there was any place that was definitely without last breath candles, it was the coffin interiors. As long as no light source appeared, those blind fools would be unable to catch them. Shenjingzhou stayed calm and lay there, facing up. Lobinka was on top of him, facing down, his head buried in the crook of Shenjingzhou's shoulder, an uncomfortable heat against his neck. If even Shenjingzhou was uncomfortable, Lobinka had to be even more so. Lobinka's hands were freezing while his head was hot, so Shenjingzhou figured he might as well use Lobinka's hands to cool his forehead. While he thought this was a good idea, just as he was about to grab Lobinka's wrist, his entire body froze. One second, I'm getting my hair out of my face because it's distracting. Gay? Yeah, you think this is gay? Just wait a second. 5 bone-thin fingers with long claw-like fingernails appeared above the coffin. Why was their search so meticulous? Wasn't the IQ of blind corpses supposed to be super low? Didn't these things entirely ignore anything that didn't give off light? Shenjingzhou suddenly realized that next to his cheek, something really was giving off a dim red glow. When he looked, though Lobinka's eyes were closed, the heavenly demon mark of sin had appeared on his forehead, lines of crimson pulsing along with his breaths. The red glow flickered on and off along with it. Though Shenjingzhou knew this mark of sin was the manifestation of the bloodline's fall from the heavens, he didn't think it needed to be so bright, did it? Why did it look like that thing on Ultraman's chest that flashed on and off whenever he was at the end of a fight and nearly out of battery? Shenjingzhou couldn't spare a hand to cover that damnable mark, so before he could even think, he turned his head and pressed the side of his mouth against that smooth forehead. It looked a bit like he was kissing Lobinka's brow. But don't mind the details, there are extenuating circumstances. Survival comes first. So he's aware. And I am going to bring up an illustration for you all. Yippee! Ooh, if my arm would allow it. Wow, ow, ow, ow. Oh, what could it be? Ah, there they are! Oh, so cute. Oh, they're so precious. Oh, I love them. Coffin scene, coffin scene, coffin scene. Oh, it's so cute. The spindly hand entangled a few strands of hair, its fingernails clogged with muck, and reached tremblingly into the stone coffin to grope around. The casket was narrow but deep. As long as it only felt around within the upper range, it wouldn't touch the 2 people lying inside. But this hand had absolutely no sense of restraint. As it reached deeper and deeper, Shenjingzhou's heart rose higher and higher in his throat. Just as it was about to touch Lobinka's spine, Shenjingzhou gritted his teeth, extracted his right arm, which was going numb from the weight, and found a mostly intact place on Lobinka's back to pull him farther down. Now Lobinka's whole upper torso was entirely pressed to his. There had been a gap between them before, but now they had become practically interlocked, chest to chest, abdomen to abdomen. A person's abdomen is supposed to be the softest spot on their body, but Lobinka's was uncomfortably hard against Shenjingzhou's stomach. The further down he pulled him, the more he was sure that Lobinka had an 8-pack. Was that a rock slab down there? Though the hand stopped searching down just barely before it reached Lobinka's back, it changed directions instead and started groping in the other direction. As it was about to touch Lobinka's calves, Shenjingzhou steeled himself and spread his legs, letting Lobinka's left leg fall between the 2 of his. He had already minimized the space the 2 of them took up as much as he could. He really couldn't make them any smaller. The blind corpse's trembling hand continued to feel about for a while. Finding nothing at all, it slowly withdrew. Only after all the blind corpses left the preparation chamber with dissatisfied rumbles, milling off into the distance, did Shen Jingzhou let out a sigh of relief. Their current position was entirely too improper. If someone looked inside the coffin at that moment, they'd definitely think Shen Jingzhou was in the throes of lust, clinging to Luo Bingke and refusing to let go, pulling him into his arms as if he wanted to meld their bodies together. He was about to push Luo Bingke into a sitting position when a voice suddenly spoke in the preparation chamber. Oh, right. It's far too early to relax. The voice was aged and had a mocking tone. Shen Jingzhou immediately grabbed Shu Ya and flipped himself over, protecting Luo Bingke beneath him as he sat up on full alert, brandishing his sword. Who is it? The horde of blind corpses had left. This mausoleum chamber was completely empty, if anything, except the frigid stone coffins filling the room. Don't tell me another corpse woke up from one of those. I looked through every one, and pretty much all of them were dry goods. That voice spoke again. If this elder wanted to go unseen, even if you searched the entirety of the holy mausoleum, you wouldn't find him. Only after these few words did Shen Jingzhou realize that the voice was eminently familiar. He had definitely heard it somewhere before, and more than once. In a sudden flash of realization, he returned his sword to its sheath. Since it's Senior Meng Mo, there's no need to act so cryptic. Ooh, ow. Guys, my head hurts. Ooh, ow. Hello? Sorry, I'm trying to reset my brain a little. Alright. Where was I? Yes. As soon as the words left his mouth, the old man appeared in the center of the preparation chamber. He wore opulent robes, and his gaze was as sharp as a hawk's. He sat cross-legged on one of the coffins, arrogantly looking down at Shen Jingzhou. So you remember this elder? If Senior Meng Mo has appeared before me, then I must be dreaming, Shen Jingzhou said. Before, Meng Mo had only appeared in dream realms in the form of a cloud of black fog, but now he could manifest a human form. It looked like he had recovered quite well in Luo Bingke's body, but seeing that the newcomer was the portable grandfather who was always on Luo Bingke's side, Shen Jingzhou relaxed. Meng Mo humphed. But your current predicament is in no way a dream. Could I ask for Senior Meng Mo's assistance in entering Luo Bingke's dream realm to wake him? Shen Jingzhou asked. I can't wake him. Huh? Shen Jingzhou began to panic, nearly breaking character. Why not? Had the fever already damaged Luo Bingke's brain? I can't get in, Meng Mo said mildly. Right now, this brat spirit is in complete chaos, a field of nothingness filled with a fog. He's sunk into a dream from which he cannot wake. This elder has only seen such circumstances within the dream realm of two kinds of people, one of which is the fatally ill, who are close to death. Neither of that sounded like it was anything good, but if the former was the fatally ill on the verge of death, the latter couldn't be worse, right? And the other? Shen Jingzhou patiently asked. The mentally infirm. Shen Jingzhou said a lot of nothing. The brat brought it on himself, Meng Mo continued as if speaking to himself. In the past 5 years he wore himself down performing soul-summoning rituals by day while massacring his own dream realm creations by night. This elder told him at the start that this was no different from destroying his own spirit, but he ignored that advice. This day was coming sooner or later. In the past few days he exhausted his spiritual energy to preserve that dew mushroom body of yours, and that demonic sword took the opportunity to revolt. Then he barged into the holy mausoleum and went toe-to-toe with the most talented heir to the heavenly bloodline in the history of our race. Shenjingzhou gripped Shuya so hard his hand started to hurt. He looked back at Lobinka, lying dead to the world in the stone coffin, and asked, Senior truly has no way to wake him. I'm powerless to help. Shenjingzhou cupped his hands in a bow and silently lay back down on the coffin. Meng Mo raised an eyebrow. What are you doing? Sleeping until I wake up. Blue veins popped on Meng Mo's forehead. You dare ignore this elder? Shenjingzhou closed his eyes. Since Senior said he was powerless to help, then I can only wait until I wake up and get him out of here myself. Meng Mo humphed. Our race's holy mausoleum is forbidden territory, full of dangers, and there are 2 troublesome characters lying in wait. You can't protect him alone. His words were correct, very correct. Shenjingzhou opened his eyes again and sighed. But in this moment, other than I, his master, who else can protect him? Or to put it another way, who else would protect him? Countless feelings ran through Shenjingzhou in an endless onslaught, and his emotions were a mess, but he was very clear on one thing. No matter what, he couldn't let Lobinka die here. After so many years, you're finally willing to admit this brat is your disciple, and you are his Shizun? Oh, this is Meng Mo. Oops. Meng Mo said in a cold voice. It's certainly been a long time, Shenjingzhou said. He was waiting for Meng Mo to continue with snide mockery, but instead the old man suddenly sighed. If this brat could wake up and hear those words of yours, who knows how overjoyed he'd be. Gramps, could you not make your every word so inauspicious? Shenjingzhou's face darkened with dismay. What did Meng Mo mean if Lobinka could wake up? This tone, like the one in question, was on the brink of death. This tone, like the one in question, was on the brink of death. A brink of life and death, was only giving Shenjingzhou more anxiety. Okay. Guys, I'm not doing so hot. Hang on. I think the break is too far away. Okay. I know where to stop, I think. I'll stop when he wakes up, right? Yes. Right. It's very hot today, and my AC is working overtime, but that does not mean my body isn't still hot. You know how it is? It's like, do you mind? You know how it is? Do you know how it is? I could also take my socks off. Okay. There we go. Meng Mo was suddenly overcome with rage. I'm clearly this kid's Shifu. Just how much have I taught him, he shouted. Power to overturn the heavens, techniques to manipulate every heart, yet he refuses to call me Shifu. Senior this, senior that. You, a common cultivator, merely taught him a few superficial forms and half-baked techniques, but he chases after you, crying and yelling as he calls you Shizun. It drives me up the wall. This massive rage had been building in Meng Mo's belly for a while, and the sight of these two lying in the same coffin was even more irritating to his eyes. He was going to go blind. He was extremely unhappy, supremely grouchy. Shenjingzhou wasn't happy either. He was already upset at the suggestion that Sangchong Mountain's sword techniques were superficial, and he was just about to retort when Meng Mo exploded again, pacing back and forth on the coffin with his hands behind his back. If only I had seamlessly gotten rid of you in the dream realm back then, these complications wouldn't have arisen today. This brat was a moldable talent with incredible potential, but as soon as he met you, he turned into this maddening good-for-nothing, and he still pretends at it when you're around, trying to act all aloof. The way this elder sees it, he should either kill you or do you. Making such a fuss, will he, won't he? It's infuriating even to watch. Kill you or do you? Hello, Crispy. How you doing, little Crispy? Little Crispy. Mungmo is saying what we're all thinking. Shen Jingzhou really wished he could cover his ears, or perhaps stitch Mungmo's mouth shut. He shot a glance at Luo Binghe's quietly sleeping visage, the image of his disciple's crying face flashing through his head for a moment, before he immediately looked away. Senior, aren't these words a bit inappropriate to say to my face? He snapped, unable to bear it. Are you done? If you're done, can you let me wake up? Mengmo was still angry. Wake up? You wouldn't know how to get out even if you did wake up. The entrance he opened has already closed. It might be possible to open it again, Shen Jingzhou said. Senior, please tell me which direction I should head in to find the place where Luo Binghe broke through the barrier using the Black Moon rhinoceros pythons. His gaze landed on Shin Mo, which hung at Luo Binghe's waist. The place where he had broken into the mausoleum would still be weak. If it were slashed once more with Shin Mo's dimension-rending abilities, it might open again. Mengmo looked in the direction of the gaze and understood his intentions, but remained skeptical. That sword may not allow you to use it. Of course Shen Jingzhou knew that as well. He gritted his teeth. There's no other choice, he said gravely to himself. I have to try. When he woke, he was still lying in the same coffin, and Luo Binghe was lying on top of him where Shen Jingzhou had left him, held tightly in his embrace. Thank the heavens that bothersome old gremlin Mengmo had finally been willing to release him. Shen Jingzhou was about to sit up when suddenly his right leg seemed to brush something stiff that jabbed into the inside of his thigh. What could it be? At first, Shen Jingzhou thought it was his sword hilt, and he absentmindedly reached down to move it. But as soon as he touched the object, the system suddenly exploded with messages. Yo! Protagonist satisfaction points plus 1,000. Cow emoji. Happy cow emoji, I guess. Congratulations on unlocking the achievement, Physical Relationship Advancement. In that moment, Shen Jingzhou also stiffened into a dry husk. The hell did Physical Relationship Advancement mean? Then he looked down. This sword hilt was in fact something quite impressive. The Heavenly Pillar! It was the Heavenly Pillar! Ah! Shen Jingzhou was going to kill everyone in this room and then himself. After flailing around for a while, he slapped himself across the face and reasoned with himself logically. One couldn't tell day from night in the Holy Mausoleum, so maybe it was morning outside right now. Therefore, this was a natural phenomenon. Phenomenon. A normal bodily function. It would go away on its own, right? That's how it usually went. Yes, that's right. But just letting it sit there and not doing anything about it, wasn't that a bit painful? Bro? Well, there was nothing to be done about that. He couldn't exactly help Luo Binghe jerk off under these circumstances, right? If he just pretended he hadn't seen anything, he would probably be forgiven, right? Right. In the end, as a Shizun, Shen Jingzhou had absolutely no duty to help his disciples simmer down, even if he'd started the fire in the first place. Shen Jingzhou shoved Luo Binghe off of him, slapped a palm against his chest, and sent a few waves of spiritual energy into him. Though it was pitifully meager, he had no more to give, and whatever he could summon was the sum total. As for everything else, just ignore it. After getting out of the coffin, he pulled and tugged, dragging Luo Binghe toward the far east end, as Mengmo had instructed. As his journey stretched on, the walls of the corridor began to dampen, and the floor beneath them grew slippery, covered in green moss. It became harder and harder to find steady footing, and Shen Jingzhou slowed his pace so he wouldn't slip. Now where am I? I think this might possibly be a good place to stop. I believe so. I know this was only an hour long. This was a rather short stream, however, I don't think I can keep going. I'm gonna be honest, I've had too many temperature changes in my body, and you know me, my autistic ass is really sensitive to temperature. So I just gotta lie down now. Well, first I gotta put my sheets back on my bed. Oh god. How am I supposed to do this with my arm broken? Anyway, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Oy, 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 oy. But yes, we are. I need to write down where I am pausing for today. Let me see. Just ignore it. Okay. Ended at slowed his pace. Oh, I can't do this. I can't write like this. So he wouldn't slip. There. Ow, guys, my arm hurts so much. Alright. But yes, I shall take my leave now. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for being here. I guess we could raid. Let me see. Yeah, I'm just gonna head out. We're not gonna raid. Well, yeah, I'm just gonna head out. Thanks for being here. Take care of yourself. Have a good rest of your day. I will be taking care of myself as best I can. And I'll see you. I'll get my schedule out. Honestly, probably tomorrow, seeing as I can't move my fucking arm today. We'll see. I'll get my schedule out tomorrow, but there shouldn't be a stream tomorrow. I'll probably have something on Tuesday, maybe. And then Wednesday, reading stream as always. And yeah, I'll see you later, okay? Okay. Blah, no hay this. Okay, bye.